want to be wise. I mean, who wouldn't? It's like the highest form of being human. Through pursuit of knowledge, one can acquire wisdom, and isn't that what being human is all about? Our brains are what make us special, so why not utilize that to its fullest potential? But becoming wise doesn't seem so easy. So many of these philosophers dedicated their entire lives to it, and in the end basically went, I haven't achieved wisdom. But they still preached and theorized about how to become wise, didn't they? Despite all of the proclamations of, I know nothing, many of these philosophers still consider themselves to be thought leaders in the field of thought, and thus more wise than others? But how does that work? Is it the achievement of wisdom, or is it the devotion to it? Does dedicating one's life to wisdom thus make them wise? Honestly, what even is wisdom? Well, we don't know. Aristotle split wisdom between Phronesis and Sophia, believing it came from a balance between practical knowledge and intellectual knowledge. Plato believed wisdom came from making sound judgments, which could only be done through having a knowledge of the forms, the most pure version of an object. Socrates claimed that wisdom came from humility, which is rich given his reputation of being the worst ever. Like, people have written about how annoying this guy is. But okay, we can't define wisdom itself. There is no single definition. So instead, maybe we can understand it a little bit better by seeing why it's held in such high regard. Value is socially decided, so why do we think wisdom specifically is invaluable? Why do we pursue it? Why do we pursue anything, really? Well, Thomas Hobbes believed that humans act on two major motivators, fear and desire. They work in tandem naturally, but most behaviors can be traced back to this, including our pursuit of wisdom. Fear. Why do we feel it? Well, put simply, to keep us alive. Historically, when the world was much more bleak, fear kept us very aware of potential threats of death, and thus those who are most fearful survived the longest to reproduce. We have evolved to be afraid even if we don't have much of a need for it anymore. Fear, more often now in recent history since the threat of death is less imminent, was and is used as a tool to feel a sense of control in the face of the world around us. Fear manifests as alertness, awareness, rationality, logic. Fear manifests as a prioritization of the brain, the very muscle that has kept this species alive for so long. Of course, this has made intelligence and knowledge widely well regarded. It's socially rewarded. If you are smart, you are more likely to survive and prosper. It is a defining trait of being a good human. It allows individuals social acceptance, respect, belonging. Humans are social. We need that. That is desirable. And when the representatives of wisdom, or the philosophers, so hungrily, almost animalistically dedicate themselves to its pursuit, we can wonder why their desire, their need, is so much stronger than the baseline. Well, you see, the desire for wisdom isn't about wisdom at all. Stay with me. It's not about knowledge or intelligence. Jacques Lacan, I googled that pronunciation, theorized that desire operates a little differently. When we desire something, we do not want the object of desire itself, but rather the future version of ourselves that it'll bring us to. If you're hungry, you don't desire the food itself, you desire a future version of yourself that is no longer hungry. If you're lonely, you don't desire friends or a social structure, you desire a future version of yourself where you feel like you belong. Humans evaluate the world around them as an extension of themselves. So even desirable pursuits or objects are perceived as a gateway to another self. The middle variable of that equation can change, but as long as it meets the satisfactory final product of you, your desire is temporarily satiated. So then what is this whole search if not for wisdom itself? Control, maybe? Social glorification? Our behavior never exists in a vacuum. There is always an underlying need. Would Socrates have been so obnoxious if he had friends that allowed him a sense of place and belonging in his community? Would Descartes still have been so stuck in his own head if he got married and found purpose in love? The hunt for wisdom is a middleman for a higher need. You want the product of you with wisdom, a you with purpose, with a sense of self-efficacy, a you with community, belonging, if anything, a sense of place by your relentless strengthening of humanity's most important muscle. The brain, by the way. But why all this? Why are we so hungry for these larger needs? What are they, when combined, supposed to output? Well, fulfillment, satisfaction, presence. Desire is fundamental to our nature, but we can, and do, utilize it as a motivator to gather all the ingredients needed for the mysterious concoction of happiness. Is that not the point of this all? But all of these philosophers, despite their best efforts, were not exactly content. Which is weird. They had control, they had respect, they had a purpose. But their tool of obtaining all of these indicators of fulfillment was through an attachment to thought, an ego tie, an intellectual lens from which they placed judgments onto the world. Suffering, like desire, is inevitable. It's built into the human experience. But suffering stems from attachment, which is ironic when the same attachment is meant to minimize suffering? Is that not counterintuitive? Okay, MacBook brightness is going up. Why does happiness have to have so many steps? Why is it framed as the golden treasure at the end of the treacherous journey of life? Why do we complicate what we naturally do so easily? Can we not take the basics of phenomenology and find fulfillment in simply interfacing with the world as it is, raw and without judgment? Is it such an intellectual sin to be present? To allow yourself simple pleasures without labeling it as so? You cannot separate yourself from your lived experience, from the world around you under the illusion of wisdom. That is self-inflicted suffering. To think more than to feel, to evaluate more than to just be. Lighting changed, but can you enjoy a cup of coffee without theorizing of death, or experience joy without labeling it as micro or macro? Are the lovers of sights and sounds not more blissful than those who seek to define them? Does dedicating your life to wisdom make you wise? Maybe, but what's the point of thinking of happiness more than feeling it? I'm not saying these great thinkers weren't wise. I'm sure they were, to a fault. I'm just saying maybe we shouldn't hold them in such high regard. They were all compensating. Modern human suffering is largely caused by a lack of present awareness, a detachment from our reality. It is beautiful to exist at all. Placing the almost celestial conscious experience of this world into the confines of a binary definition, riddled with rules on how to maximize one's output, with made-up logic and rationality and abstract theory. If that is wisdom, then it dilutes the whole point. The whole point of being, of existing, of seeing this universe as a divine extension of it. What's the point of any of this if not to simply experience?